The first 3 episodes of The Boys have dropped, and oh boy, do we have a lot to unpack. I want to start with the overall theme of this season, and that's power. Not just superpowers, but superpowers as one type of power among business, government, and even popularity. And the idea that, to some degree, those are just as powerful as superpowers, which to Homelander is just nuts. All right, so anyway, Homelander, on that note, could of course just burn everything to the ground, as he makes very clear when he finally removes the thread of that airplane tape from the board, which was held over his head last season. He says he'd prefer to be in society and he'd prefer to be loved, but feared, he's okay with that if it comes to it. And Homelander, wanting to be loved, continues to not only be at the heart of the character, but also his greatest weakness. And that makes him, I think, more interesting. He doesn't understand, though, the world that he's living in, where people he feels that are lesser than him somehow have control over him. He's like, what the heck is this? I think that's why he's drawn to Butcher and why they have that conversation, because Butcher's also been put on a leash, more so voluntarily, because Butcher's trying to turn his life around. He's trying to, do better. But they get each other, and they both crave/thrive in freedom. The freedom to do whatever the hell they want. That's where they're both at their best. Butcher, though, now has a chance to level the playing field with V24, which gives him similar powers to Homelander, but for just 24 hours with each dose. They really are the yin and yang of each other, which I think also makes them a very interesting duo. And once Butcher takes the V24, fascinatingly, they both become super predators. Isn't that interesting? I think that's very interesting. But back to Homelander. As the Joker has so famously said, all it takes is one bad day. And Homelander's bad day just happens to be his birthday. But the day before ain't so great either. His popularity has plummeted thanks to the reveal to the public that Stormfront was a Nazi. Charlize Theron playing her in the Dawn of the Seven movie. That was fun. Did you catch the Billy Zane cameo in the Deeps movie? But while Starlight, though, her popularity has gone up, and she's also a super couple, a power couple with Huey, who is the Bureau's new star. And that suddenly makes her more powerful than him. And as a result, and I also think it's a power play from Stan Edgar, the co-captain of the Seven, diluting Homelander's power. Frustrated like a bully, Homelander starts humiliating other people around him to make himself feel better. A-Train, the Deep with that incredible dinner scene. I think that was a mix of humiliating the Deep and showing that he can make the Deep do whatever he wants. But that was like, wow, he was like, I can't eat Timothy, he's got kids. Oh man, he's praying. So that was, I think, very well done. I couldn't believe it though, wow. And then Starlight, Starlight was harder to humiliate because she's fighting back, and fighting back very cleverly. Like for instance, he first, tried to bring her down, have her do the happy birthday like Marilyn Monroe at his birthday party, but Stan Edgar blocked him because she's, of course, at that point is still more popular. And I loved Stan Edgar's line when Homelander threatens to walk, and he says, "It's your party, you can cry if you want to." I was like, oh, and Giancarlo Esposito delivered it so well. But once Homelander's popularity goes back up, after his big birthday speech, which we'll get to in a moment, he is then able to bring the Deep back onto the team to humiliate Starlight, and also again because he can control the Deep, and it balances out Starlight bringing her ex-boyfriend Supersonic onto the team, which gives her like somebody who's on her side. And this, of course, is all happening on the superhero reality competition program, American Hero. I really liked Moonshadow. I felt bad we didn't learn more about her. All right, so anyway, Homelander's birthday. And it starts out with his aunt. Well, it starts out first coming in to see Stormfront, who we find out is still alive, recovering under a portrait of George Washington. It's like wow. So I'm very impressed that actress came back for this because it made a difference. So, he's like, "You're gonna wish me happy birthday? Just blink once for happy birthday." Like, she's there, but he's still making it all about himself. She's more of a prop, and she's playing into that. She is also making it all about him, as long as he's going to help her fulfill her lifelong goals that she's had since being a Nazi in World War II. But he doesn't want to do that. He's just all about himself. He's not about her cause. And so she's just so sad that she kills herself. She kills herself, as they say, she pulls $1 million baby by cutting her own tongue off. And that's actually a pretty strong statement because, of course, she's been alive for so long and, she just decides to take herself out. So it has a big impact on Homelander, but more so because she did it on his birthday. So he takes it personally. And then he has this amazing speech where he's saying, it's his birthday and, Christmas wasn't really Jesus's birthday. It was just, it was more propaganda. It was more commercialism. They picked it to go along with a pagan holiday. And he says, today isn't my birthday really either. He doesn't even know when his birthday was. Because he says both he and Jesus were born by immaculate conception. I think that's very, very interesting. That's all I'll say about that. But anyway, so he decides, he says, how is it fair that a god like that, like Stormfront, would die and just a pitiful human like you gets to live? And he's like, you know what? Jump. And she's like, I don't want to anymore. And then he's like, it's not a request anymore. You're going to do it. And then she says, oh God. And he responds, the only man in the sky is me. That was extremely well written and extremely well delivered by Mr. Anthony Starr. So that was an incredible scene. Then at his birthday, and he pushes her off the edge. Then at his birthday telecast, not going well. Starlight's taking center stage, announcing her Starlight organization, and then he gets heckled. He gets heckled. It not only brings up, Stormfront killing herself on his birthday, but I think just the idea that someone would heckle Homelander just makes him feel how much he's fallen. Because listen to this. He snaps. And he's been giving this talking point going to the TV shows. I love that he was so upset that the Deep got the spot before him. But he says, I might be a superhero, but I'm just as human as the rest of you. And the words taste like ash in his mouth. And he says on his birthday telecast, he says, I'm not human. I'm not like the rest of you. I'm better. If they can control me, which he's very frustrated about, you can bet they can certainly control you. He's like, and you need me. I'm the real superhero. And basically his speech is like, let's stop pretending, which is what everyone has been doing. It's what that heckler did. Homelander does the equivalent of knocking over the game board, or at least reminding everyone that he can, because they've all gotten way too comfortable thinking that he won't do it. And he's like, remember what I'm capable of doing. So that is excellent. And I think, he taps into something that we're seeing in the general public as well in real life. And his popularity goes up, particularly with people like the kind of stepfather of MM's family. I don't know if MM's ex-wife actually married that guy. Now, he's lost some ground with some other demographic, but Ashley says that's okay because once he's partnered with Starlight together, they have a 98% approval rating, more than Soldier Boy even ever had. And I think that's where he gets the germ or the inkling of the idea to make himself a couple with Starlight, with hashtag Homelight being their celebrity couple name. And that was an incredible scene because it reminds you of the sexual harassment cases we hear of at workplaces. I mean, just to see Supersonic's face, having to see that, knowing that it's not what Starlight wants. And then she has to play along, and you see her hiding her pain for the show. And of course, calling back to that opening scene from episode 3 with her as a child star and how she used to handle how unhappy she was back then. I also want to point out that one of the things that makes Homelander particularly happy about Ashley's report is that people say they want to know the real him. And I think that's not only for someone who wants to be loved, but for someone who has been packaged his whole life, who was born in a lab and never really got to be himself. And I think Homelander doesn't even know the answer to that question, but he's intrigued to find out. He just likes the idea. And so I think that's also very well done. Again, this stuff's really buried deep. These are very interesting storylines, but they're so spread out and diluted with commentary, both political and pop culture, that you really need to watch these episodes multiple times for it all to click, or watch my breakdowns. And I'm curious for what you guys have picked up on. Share that stuff down below as well, because there's a lot here. There's a lot. All right. So what makes Butcher snap? Because remember, he and Homelander are two different sides of the same coin. So he starts out playing nice with Huey. That was a nice French blue suit. It was very, very sharp. And he's like, I'll get you those expense reports. I mean, wow, what's happened to you, Butcher? And he doesn't even kill Termite. What a sequence. By the way, Ant-Man actually did that first. Ant-Man used himself as, let's just say, a vibrator in the comics for real. So that actually happened. So this is, I think, obviously a reference to that. But Marvel was just as crazy as this. And I thought, it ended up being like pretty funny / scary when he was trying to run up Frenchie's pant leg or into his mouth. I mean, you actually can think about just how dangerous this character really is. But anyway, Termite gets away scot-free because Victoria Newman, understands real power, and she uses him as a bargaining chip to get other things that she wants. She's playing the game. We'll talk about Newman. And when Huey finds out she's the head popper and tells Butcher, after he just got his butt handed to him by Gunpowder and no answers because his hands are tied, he realizes it's all rigged. Just like Homelander. Butcher, I mean, again, they have a lot of similarities. Butcher's like, I'm being controlled. This is all just a game. And so he wants to break free just like Homelander, so he takes the V-24. Jacked up on V-24, which by the way was created by Stan Edgar, we find out, as Vought's next play to move from superhero daycare, which I thought was great, to being a pharmaceutical and military contract company. Because if someone can just have a power for 24 hours, that puts all the control back in Vought's hands. They no longer have to deal with somebody for the rest of, for more than one regular lifetime, because of course, Compound V makes you live a lot longer. So I think, that's very interesting. All right, so also, Butcher is finally able to defeat Gunpowder, and I don't know if he planned to kill him. I think because, he wants to take Soups off the board, but, he still is doing it his way, just with brute force. But in the middle of taking out Gunpowder, he loses control of his powers, his laser vision, and really makes a mess of things, just like the Soups that he goes after. And apparently he does not notice the irony. Or if he does, he keeps it very close to the vest. Now, Butcher got the V-24 from Maeve, who's been playing the game but is now cheating, feeding Butcher tips behind the scenes. She told him about Termite, and she has a tip on Soldier Boy because she found out that he didn't die stopping a nuclear meltdown in Ohio, which was the big, story that Vought told everybody, but a weapon took him out. And she and Butcher think, well, if the weapon was strong enough to take out Soldier Boy, maybe it could be what they need to take down Homelander. Because right now, no one is at the level of Homelander. So that's why Butcher went after Gunpowder and is able to get under his skin thanks to MM's research on all things Soldier Boy, because Soldier Boy, of course, just like, remember, just like Butcher has a vendetta against Homelander for, what he did to his wife, MM has a vendetta against Soldier Boy for what Soldier Boy did to his family. So, Soldier Boy is MM's Homelander, which is why he comes back on the team. And his ex-wife gives the blessing. She's like, you got to finish this. It's tearing you apart. So I mean, that's very nice of her because it makes all of them potentially collateral damage. But anyway, from Gunpowder, before he kills him, Butcher finds out that his own Grace Mallory, what do you know, was the agent on it turns out to be a fateful mission in Nicaragua. So they find out what happened back then, and in that flashback, we find out that Black Noir was once a regular superhero stuck behind a mask because of racism of the day. By the way, I did not like the actor they picked for young Stan Edgar. I don't think he had the good Giancarlo Esposito vibe. I thought the actress they picked for Mallory was excellent. But anyway, Mallory says Payback was a total mess when they showed up on site, and things went south, and she got knocked out, and when she came to, she sees the remnants of a big fight, and she sees that Black Noir was horribly injured, including a brain injury, which makes him who we know today. And Crimson Countess runs up and tells the Russians it was the Russians who killed Soldier Boy with a weapon, indeed, and took his body back to Russia. And what do you know? What timing? Frenchie's former abusive boss, Little Nina, has come back into his life, threatening a close friend of his, and she just happens to be Russian. And, Butcher, of course, wants a meeting with her so they can get to Russia. Today, by the way, Crimson Countess is working in Vaughtland, and I'm a big Disney World and Disneyland fan, so I never like it when people make fun of it because I feel they never get it. I'm like, if you made fun of Disney, you've probably not been there, or you just did not give it a chance, a fair shot. And also, it always looks so cheap in comparison. I'm like, come on, nobody would be a super fan of a park that looks like that. That looks more Six Flags than Disney World. But anyway, I thought it was interesting that in the Soldier Boy story and with Crimson Countess's, dressing room, With Soldier Boy, they referenced McCarthyism, that he was turning people in like McCarthy. And also John Wayne, I have to tell you. And then also Tiger King references, but instead with a gorilla. I think that's the joke they were trying to make there with Crimson Countess. But we also learned some very vital information that Crimson Countess has to be able to touch her hands together to be able to use her powers. All right, so that's the main storyline. But there are some other developing storylines thrown here in here as well, because we have a very big cast. All right, so Kimiko hates what her powers have made her. You know, she doesn't like being a monster, which is a little similar to Elle's problem over in Stranger Things. Is she a superhero or a monster? And that brother and sister at Vountland remind her of herself with her brother, and then when they witness the carnage, how, you know, she steals their childhood just like her and her brother's childhood was stolen from them because of Compound V. And she has a really good conversation with Ryan. By the way, when Butcher bought that Connect 4 game set, nice little Amazon shout out, because of this, of course, this airs on Amazon Prime. But anyway, you know, both of them are very afraid of hurting other people with their powers and wish they didn't have them. And I thought that it was very interesting that Ryan said he didn't want a dog because he was too afraid he would hurt it. You know, you think that's just like the classic pastime for a child, and he doesn't want to do it because he's so scared he would hurt the dog. So I thought that was very interesting. And Ryan is so afraid of hurting people, of hurting, you know, animals, people, becoming his father, that's why it's particularly cruel when Butcher pushes him away by saying it's because he doesn't want to look at him because of Ryan accidentally killing not just Becca, Butcher's ex-wife and the love of his life, but, you know, that's Ryan's mother. And I think it's just all of Ryan's worst fears come true, that, you know, and you know, Ryan, like his actual father, just, you know, or any child, wants to be loved. And I guess that means Homelander's still very childish. All right, Huey gets it, right? Everybody else thinks Butcher's a monster, but Huey knows that Butcher is afraid of Ryan being collateral damage, so he's pushing him away. I don't know why I can't just say, I'm taking a break, kid. I'll see you in about a month, hopefully. And Butcher, by the way, continues to equate Huey with his younger brother, which you see when he's like dreaming about maybe taking Compound V, and first he hears Huey's voice saying, don't do it, and then he sees his brother's image on the TV. But anyway, he throws up in Huey's mouth with his V24 hangover, so Huey's going to know about V24. As for Huey, he's finally leading a charmed life. I thought in the first episode, you know, they're playing Billy Joel, which was a nice callback to last season. He's talking to his dad. Nice to see Simon Pegg, who, of course, the Huey was based on in the comics. He's dating Starlight, going to the premiere. He helped bring down Stormfront. He's a legend at the Bureau. But there are cracks in his fairy tale, right? He can't open a can, and so Starlight has to keep doing it for him, which embarrasses him. She's constantly treating him like a damsel in distress. She's like, don't do anything without me. He's like, I work at the Bureau. And then when he finds out Newman's a soup, who is his best friend at work, his work wife, I guess you could say, and he feels he's just like a chump to all these women, he's just, you know, he just can't take it anymore. All right, next up, Newman's secret, Victoria Newman's secret. She was another kid who also grew up at Red River, confronts her, first tries to get her at the premiere, and then actually comes to her office. So we learn more about her powers in this very clever fight between the two of them, that she has to see what she's popping. So this guy trying to keep her from looking at him and keeping her eyes closed was really well done. I thought that was very well choreographed and made it for a very intriguing fight. But this is Red River, it turns out, is an orphanage for super kids. I think, you know, that was referenced in the Boys Diabolical animated series. Kids who were given up by their parents because they were too afraid of them or they were too much trouble, or they killed their parents accidentally with their powers. I thought it was interesting when the woman who worked there was like, because, you know, Huey says, oh, yes, a cover story. So he's like, oh, I'm here because me and Starlight want to adopt a child. And so we thought, why not a super child? And the woman who works there is like, that's great. Less of a chance a super mother will be killed. And you're like, yikes. But we find out from the files that Huey steals that such horrible security at Red River. But anyway, that Stan Edgar adopted Victoria, it turns out. So she's his daughter, and they're still working together. He helped her clean up the murder, and so Stan Edgar really not only controls Vought, but also the Bureau, the Bureau of Superhuman Affairs, or whatever they're calling it. There are so many bureaus of superhero stuff in comics. But anyway, and that's why she's so good at playing the game, by the way, but it also gives Stan Edgar a weakness. His daughter. Finally, A-Train, who is continuing to have heart issues, so he can't use his power. And I think there was some very interesting commentary here in multiple ways. First, they were really leaning into the jokes. He wants to rebrand. He wants to, appeal more to the African American community who, aren't really into the Seven, understandably. So he pitches some shows. He wants to do A Train to Africa, which you'll note is a 15-part docuseries on Vought Soul, and then also a slavery video game. I think the graphics department for The Boys really does an excellent job, and they don't waste an inch of space with meta commentary and jokes. It's very interesting. But his brother comes back into his life and goes to visit him, and he finds out, this is ripped from the headlines, that there was, a man in the neighborhood, a black man in the neighborhood, was falsely accused of a white woman of being a threat, which we see in the news all the time. For instance, at the Birdwatcher in Central Park. And so Blue Hawk, a Vought superhero, a lower level one, killed him. And, A Train's brother is like, you got to help the community. You got to do something about this guy. He's targeting our community specifically. And then, wow. A Train says, look, I'm Michael Jordan, not Malcolm X, which I think is a reference to Michael Jordan's famous, or maybe how you feel about it, infamous comment about sneakers and how, everybody buys sneakers. So, Michael Jordan wasn't so as willing to take a stand. So, that's aggressive commentary. So it's interesting because, Michael Jordan is so beloved to this day. Everybody loved that documentary about the Chicago Bulls. So it was interesting that The Boys said that. All right, so that's The Boys episode 1 through 3. What do you think so far? Share your thoughts, theories, and ideas down below. What do you like? What do you not like, if anything? It is very interesting, but it's all over the place. But share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.